Before I relay the program, let's pay our respects to those who are no longer here with us and who have dedicated their lives working on fusion. So if you could please raise your coffee and teacups to those not here in their honor and say JET, that would be great. 3, 2, 1, JET. Fantastic. Right, it was great to have the Minister from Nuclear and Renewables, Minister Bowie, and the European Commission's Elena O'Reilly speak in the same building housing JET. So it's the same place as the Queen and President Francois Mitterrand in 1983 that opened the facility. Now, the reason why you're not in there is because we couldn't fit you all in, which is why you're here. But a bit of quirky feedback in terms of why you're here. Now, the same marquee providers in 1983 are the same marquee providers that provided you the marquee now. So how amazing is that? 40 years later, and that is Simon, Flory, and Son. So big hand of applause. We also have media present today on site, and another bit of quirky feedback. So Sky News here. Sky News, that was here in 1997 to record the first world record, is the same crew that is also here today. So another, welcome back, Sky News. Right, we've got lots of activities today. Now we have speeches from the JET alumni who take us through the ages. Now I appreciate all the speakers are not all previous directors, but a range of people to represent you. We acknowledge instances of overlap and divergence in events and personal experiences, depending on individual interests and focus. There may be some common ground, but others may vary due to their particular areas. But before I introduce the speakers, I was going to do the biggest JET selfie, and I just realized I put my phone on the table. So I've got to get my phone. Right, if the photographer can join me on stage, let's try break the internet with the biggest JET selfie. And 3, 2, 1, let's all go JET. And this is where I get my graphics team to hide the 1001 chins that I have. Right, on your tables you have coffees, teas, and donuts. You also have special chocolates in the shape of £5 coins with JET imprinted on them. And we've decided to call them Chocomax. I'm sure some of you have already had them. They're quite tasty, twice the price of a Mars bar, so do enjoy. After the speeches, you have tours, and then the first group to start the tours, it's the red group. Red group, put your hands up. Great stuff, you're starting the tour first. Now, the tours will start with a tour of the Tours Hall, and you will also have photos, group photos taken by National Geographic photographer, and then you'll also have tours to the remote handling control room, as well as the control room. Now, there are lunches, there are food trucks at the back of the stage, and there's a one-way system, there's fish and chips available. And very important, I was asked to provide a bar, and we have provided a bar. So you can, yes, I know, someone goes, yay! And at 3:30 p.m., perfect time for cake, we will have a 3-tiered JET cake, and that will be cut by the legendary Paul-Henri Rebut, the inventor of JET himself. Right, we also have merchandise for sale. There's t-shirts. I've got the black version on, modeled by yours truly. There's also a white version, and there are also mugs that are at the back. And feel free to pick up one on your way out. But they do cost, of course. There is also a photo exhibition, mini theatre, and memory wall. So I do encourage you to spend time up at J1. Right, okay, on to the speeches. We have 6 speakers today. We have Barry Green, who will cover 1973 to 1983. We have Michel Huguet, who will cover 1983 to 1992. Fernanda Rimini, 92 to 2006. Damien King, 2007 to 23. And then Peter Lomas, who's got the big job of covering all 40 years. And then we will end with our CEO, Ian Chapman. In between each speaker, there'll be a wrap-up video. played in between. So, further ado, Barry Green, researcher, scientific assistant to the director, Operation Phase, group leader, Taurus Operations Group, group leader, Machine Operations Group, all the way from sunny Australia. Welcome.
Honourable guests, I really don't need this. It is wonderful to see so many people here today who have been associated with the project since the design phase began in late 1973. That makes 50 years. Please spare a thought for those who worked on the project but have since died or who otherwise could not be here. The first official discussions on a large European tokamak began at a meeting of the European Tokamak Advisory Group in Brussels in October 1971. 3 members of that group went on to play major roles in the JET team: Alan Gibson, Peter Knoll, who's here today, and Paul-Henri Rebut, who is certainly here today. My journey to JET started when Paul-Henri Rebut gave a talk in mid-73 at the Institut für Plasmaphysik at Garching, Germany, where I was employed. He asked for those interested to see him after the talk, but when I told him I was a theoretical physicist, he said that the project didn't need any of those because he would do the theory. Fortunately, this was not the case, and in late 73 I joined the design phase team in the theory group headed by Alan Gibson. Rebut was head of the international design team based on the site at the UKAEA Culham Laboratory. Now let's see. Oh, there we are. That's the man. All the staff of the JET design team were seconded for the duration of the design phase from their institutions, which were associated with the Euratom fusion program coordinated by the Commission of the European Communities. The design phase started in September 1973 and was originally scheduled to finish at the end of 1975. So what did the design team actually do? Well, with the assistance of study contracts with the partners, it produced a design document in 1975, which was subsequently approved by the partners. However, dispute over the location of the site led to a standoff between the Culham Laboratory and the Institut für Plasmaphysik, although other sites had been considered, and a site committee had evaluated them all. From the end of 1975, there were 3 6-monthly extensions to mid-77, followed by a 3-month extension to wrap up the project if a site decision had not by then been agreed. This produced a lively betting opportunity. A positive decision for the JET project did come through on October 25, 1977, in most dramatic fashion, following the British assistance in the resolution of the hijack of the Lufthansa airliner in Mogadishu, Somalia, on October the 18th. As you can imagine, the design team members who had remained were thrilled, as was the European fusion community. President Carter of the USA sent a letter in October 77 on the occasion of the groundbreaking ceremony for the Tokamak Fusion Test Reactor, our competitor, in Princeton, congratulating the Europeans on the decision to proceed with JET. Now, the beauty of the JET design is that it allowed considerable flexibility. The base requirement was a 3 megamp plasma current machine, but the choice of non-circular shaped cross-section allowed for larger plasma currents and different magnetic configurations. For example, single and double X points of varying elongation and triangularity. This permitted a wide-ranging physics program which made major contributions in many areas. Plasma performance was pushed close to that required in a fusion reactor. The ability to use tritium, the radioactive isotope of hydrogen, and the accessibility of the vessel for remote maintenance allowed for fusion reactor-like operation. The design made possible considerable performance upgrade capability. I should also note that there were cultural and social achievements of the jet design team. These are a couple of slides from Christmas parties, Baz Pease, Paul-Henri Rebut and Alan Gibson. And in the next one, the 1977 Christmas party where Dieter Eckart and his secretary Sue Gehring looking at a Humph cartoon, for those of you who remember the Humph cartoons, which I'd arranged to be presented to the division heads. Scientists and engineers from different educational backgrounds found ways to collaborate in the most effective manner. There was initially a difficulty in obtaining continental foodstuffs in the area, but Palm's delicatessen in the Oxford covered market quickly woke up to the commercial opportunity. The UK Atomic Energy Authority, the host organisation, enabled the establishment of a European school at Culham, and the UK and its continental pupils have left a great legacy, many going on to university in the UK. On the sporting front, I organised a cricket team to play in the Culham six-a-side competition, introducing players from the Netherlands, France and Germany to the game. The jet team won the competition on at least one occasion. Following the side agreement in October 1977, there was an interim phase in which the Interim Jet Council, under the leadership of Francis Jacques Taillac, agreed the statutes of the Jet Joint Undertaking, which was formally established on the 1st of June 1978. A sign indicating the presence of the Jet Laboratory was unveiled at the entrance of the Culham site on about the 5th of June 1978. Now, on the left, unfortunately, we've rubbed out Hans Otto Vista, the first director of the Jet Joint Undertaking, but the importance was to get the sign, and also this gentleman, Dr. Donato Palumbo, who had really set up the establishment of the fusion research within Europe. A foundation stone was laid with great ceremony on the 18th of May 1979, but was removed the very next day and is now to be found at the entrance of the control building J2, coming from the building J1. And there you see happy people quaffing some, or not quaffing something, but around the stone. The construction phase began under a new director, Dr. Hans Otto Vista, with Paul-Henri Rebut as technical director. The construction phase was one of intense activity, but the proud claim is that it was completed on time and to budget. Following commissioning, it's not many projects that can say that. Following commissioning, the first plasma of the operation phase was produced on the 25th of June 1983. The plasma current of the first pulse was very modest, about 16 kiloamps, but before the end of 1983, 3 megaamps was achieved. The biggest upheaval in the operation phase was the death of the director, Vista, who died on the 30th of June 1985. A new directorate was formed with Paul-Henri Rebut as director and Roy Bickerton as deputy director. Many of my Jet colleagues have remarked that their involvement with the project was a high point in their professional careers. The team spirit, or the esprit de corps, I observed in my time at Jet made the work a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Right, next up is Michel Huguet. He's our Associate Director and Head of Machine Development, all the way from Paris, France. Michel.
Thank you for the welcome. So Barry has covered the initial jet phase up to 1983, and I now take over to talk about the next time slot that will go from 1983 to 1992. This is when I left JET together with Barry to join ITER. So I shall talk, of course, about JET successes, but as you very well know, in a project there are ups and downs. And I shall therefore also talk about some of the issues that the project had to face. So in 1983, start of operation was a success, much to the satisfaction of the directors, Hans Otto Wüster here, and Paul-Henri Rebut, the inventor of JET. As Barry mentioned, plasma currents up to 3 megaamps were achieved before the end of 1983. The following year, in April 1984, the opening ceremony was a major event. It attracted many prestigious visitors, the Queen, the French President, the President of the European Commission. So that was a major event, and this is probably why in the following weeks, JET started receiving letters that were addressed to the Joint European tourists. Mind you, this address was far more appropriate than further letters that were received at the same time, addressed to the Joint European tourists, but tourists spelled as. And of course, I can confirm that JET was not some sort of European cattle farm. In the following years, there was much progress on plasma heating systems, in particular neutral beams, thanks to people like Ernie Thompson, Ron Hemsworth, Derek Stork, and many others. And also on radio frequency heating, thanks to Jean Jacquinot, Claude Gormezano, Alan Kay, and again, Terry Wade, many others. So plasma got hotter, and this was the good news. But there was a bad news. And the bad news was a degradation of the energy confinement time with increasing heating power. This was a serious setback. But thanks to Paul-Henri Rebut's innovative design, JET, as already been mentioned, has been provided with the capability to produce elongated plasma cross-sections. And these elongated plasma cross-sections allowed X-point operation. And this mode of operation had been initiated at JET by physicist Arturo Tanga. This mode of operation led to H mode with improved confinement, and later it led to full divertor operation after the installation of divertor coils. Thus, it is the innovative design of JET with elongated cross-section, large plasma current capability that have been one of the key reasons why JET has had such a long and successful operation life of 40 years. So far so good, but we had also serious problems. And now I start with a few. I will mention only two, but I can tell you there were many more. In 1984, we experienced the first vertical instability of the plasma. And this was a dramatic event. I can tell you it was like a hammer blow on the vacuum vessel, but a 200 tons hammer blow with a terrific noise. It was scary, it had not been anticipated, but within a relatively short time, two people came up with an explanation of this event. Peter Noll and a colleague from IPP, Helmut Niedermeyer. And the JET response to this new unexpected challenge was effective. New, stronger vessel supports were installed to allow safe operation with elongated plasma cross-sections. Now another problem which we discovered in 1989, and this was far more serious and potentially disastrous. a short circuit, a resistive short circuit, was discovered in one of the toroidal field coils. The coil had to be replaced. And this was a major task to undertake, considering that there was beryllium inside the vacuum vessel, and very special precautions had to be taken. Amazingly, the coil was replaced in 5 months during a shutdown, thanks to a collective effort of the team. And here I would like to mention in particular John Lars, the head of the magnet group, and Giulio Celentano, who took care of the mechanical operations. Now I wish to go back to successes. And one success in this time period has been the development of so-called nuclear technologies. This was a crucial development for tritium operation. And this included remote handling inside the vacuum vessel. For this, the concept and the key features of remote handling had been invented by Tullio Raimondi. And development was later headed by Alan Rolfe. And the other key development that was necessary for tritium operation was the tritium plant design and construction, which were both carried out successfully by Hans Emmerich and his team. In 1991, we had the preliminary tritium experiment, the PTE, and this was a tremendous success. Preparations for this experiment started very discreetly, I would say almost secretly. Why? Simply because Paul-Henri Rebut wanted to make sure that JET would do it before the Americans. And for this purpose, 2 task forces were set up. Alan Gibson led the physics task force, and I led the technology task force, with key people in this technology task force like Ernie Thompson for neutral beams, Hans Emmerich, again, for tritium compatibility of systems, and Alice Bell for safety. The experiment took place on 9 November 1991, and as you see, this is the neutron count, but up to 1.7 megawatt of fusion power was produced. Paul-Henri Rebut was so confident that he had invited medias, a TV crew, inside the control room while we were doing it. And the success of the experiment made headlines worldwide. And it was acclaimed as a major step forward for fusion research. Now, before concluding, I would like to give a thought, like my colleague Barry, to those who have died or who could not come today. Sadly, the list is already long, including some of those whose name I have mentioned in my talk, and some who are shown on this picture behind me. And I would like to make a particular mention to Enzo Bertolini on the right-hand side, because he was a key member of the team, and he was also a close friend. I wish to say how proud I feel to have been a member of this team. And as I said before, the path to success has not been smooth. It has been a bumpy path. We had many problems. But each time JET faced a problem at JET, we were not trying to look for culprits. We were only trying to look for solutions. And with such a team spirit, the response to problems was always quick and decisive. I have to say that the team quality, the dedication, the commitment were truly exceptional. And in my view, this is the other reason why JET has had such a long and successful operation time of 40 years. Thank you.
Right, before I introduce our next speaker, we heard the name Paul-Henri Rebut quite a few times, and I think it's only befitting that we invite him to this stage, the inventor of jet himself, Paul-Henri Rebut. Thank you, Monsieur. Thank you.
Thank you to you, or to a lot of you, in fact. Because well, it was a necessity for me and for others also, maybe, to show what we can do with such a machine like that. The fact that it was supported by the machine itself is important, and I am not sure that we were able to make a big machine working at full machine into this, and this was possible by several people working into the project, and so it's difficult to produce people unlike a project just like this. I must remember also everybody working on ITER.
The legend, Paul-Henri Rebut, thank you very much. Impromptu talk. Right, our next speaker, Fernanda Rimini, originally from Italy and now our own star maker. She was JET's Senior Exploitation Manager for Eurofusion, and she will cover the years 1992 to 2006. Fernanda.
Good morning, beautiful people. Oh, I need glasses. God. I got to JET. I arrived at JET in the winter of 1987, and I had a grant for 2 years. And like probably most of you, I thought I would only stay a couple of years max, and then I would go back home and find myself a real job. So I stayed. I stayed for the next 30 and odd years. And one of the reasons that I stayed is not just for the physics, for the science, which is brilliant. I stayed because this is the best team I could ever hope to work with. And when I started at JET, I was doing numerical modeling until I realized that doing tokamak operations and the world of the control room is a lot more exciting. And that's what I have done ever since, basically most of my working life. So you heard so far how this beautiful machine was designed and built and began to operate. And in 1992-94, this beautiful machine was eviscerated, completely ripped open, to install 4 new magnetic coils at the bottom and the diverter structure. And this has allowed JET, over the next 30 years, to carry out studies of the H-mode, high confinement, at higher plasma current, higher power, reaching the parameter space that really no other machines could do. And this was the aim of this project. And these are the diverters over the years. Over the next 20 years or so, several diverter concepts were tested. Some were more successful than others, the gas box. But they all yielded a wealth of new data on scrape-off layer, on diverter physics, but also on the impact of these on the behavior of the hot core of the plasma. The installation of the gas box diverter itself was also the first opportunity to carry out major significant maintenance and installation tasks entirely by remote handling in what was at the time an active vessel. And that confirmed the correctness of the original project design choices. Thank you. Something else that happened in the 1992-94 shutdown was the installation of the full lower hybrid current drive system. Most of you may have forgotten that JET ever had a lower hybrid system. I remember because I was working on it, and I did spend weeks in J1H commissioning the Klystron power generator. There were 24 of them. It was a beautiful system, and it powered an antenna weighing 12 tons and capable of moving in real time and under remote, under control, real-time control. And it nearly failed to be installed at all. This all happened when the launcher was being moved from K3 into the torus hole, and the cord of the crane got entangled. There were 12 tons of steel hanging high up into the torus hole, basically hanging over the torus. There is a photo of this event, and I think it used to be in the corridor of the RF division in J20. And it shows the launcher, and lots of people underneath, very worried people looking, wondering if years of research and a huge amount of money was just about to come crashing down. Fortunately, it didn't. It took some ingenuity, and it took skills, and it took guts to fix the problem, but it didn't. NLH did go on to produce groundbreaking results from the physics and the engineering. So now I'd like to go back to what is undoubtedly for me the scientific highlight of this period, which is the first DT experiment, the first significant DT experiments campaign. As a reminder, as they've mentioned before, at the time there was another tokamak operating with DT plasmas, TFTR in Princeton in the US, and I think the friendly competition between the two teams did add to the scientific and engineering interest of the experiments. And needless to say, we eventually beat them. The DT1 experiment was organized as 3 task forces, and each task force was led on the ground by a director or a deputy. Martin Kailacher, who was the director at the time, Alan Gibson, and Jean Jacquinot. In my case, I was working in the team aiming at the transient high power, under Martin Kailacher's leadership, and I will always be thankful for his leadership, for his support, for his scientific support, but also for his personal support. My recollections of DT1 are of a very exciting time, of the almost unreal feeling of being part of something important, but not quite knowing how I got there, of the 16 hours working days completed by debriefing after the sessions at 10 o'clock in the evening, and of watching Teletubbies on TV, because that was the only thing that my brain could watch. Small parenthesis, as part of the high power transient, the hot ion H mode produced more fusion energy than the optimized shear scenario, and they had to wait 25 years to get the record back in DT2. Finally, I think we cannot talk about the time between the late 90s and the early 2000s without mentioning the end of the joint undertaking and the start of the more integrated exploitation of jet under EFTA-JET. I'm not going into the reasons why this happens, but it was a very turbulent time for the project and personally for a lot of us. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the crucial role of Jérôme Pamela, the first director under the new governance, in steadying the ship, in helping set up the new way of collaborating. And scientifically, while there may not have been world records, the early 2000s saw an increased Europe-wide collaboration and continued in the tradition of excellency of jet research. And the team did even some more trace tritium experiments. And more importantly, it finalized the scientific and engineering arguments for the installation of the metal wall and the increase in heating power that Damien will discuss next. Thank you very much.
Right, next speaker, we have Damien King. You're probably wondering, who? He is Jet Operations Manager, Neutral Beam Group Leader, and Session Leader. He's got a big job of covering the last 16 years. In 8 minutes, Damien, to the stage. Thank you.
Okay, we better start. It's not long, so it's not 1:30, but it's time to start. I joined Jet in 2007. Similar to Fernanda, I joined to take a job doing coding and found that operating the machine was much more fun. And I joined the Neutral Beam Group, and a big part of my job was being a shift leader on Jet, and clocked many more shifts than a lot of people in that period, again, because it was fun. The period we start with really was the Ether-like wall here. So this is the huge project to install the wall. This isn't an image, a picture of the wall. This is a demonstration of what the wall would be from before it. So we start with this huge task to continue to make Jet relevant for the new centuries, and this entire enormous project to replace the whole wall with the metallic tiles was done entirely by robotic means. And it was done entirely, again, on time within the 18-month period. An incredible achievement by the team doing that. And all the preparation leading up to it, key people in particular being Guy Matthews and Valeria Riccardo, who were real proponents of making sure this got done the way it should have. And what you can see here is the immense work following the remote handling, night shifts and everything like this to get it done, that left us with the wall that you see here, which is the shinier and cleaner version of what we finished with just last year as the end result. But of course, this enormous intervention was not just about the wall. You had to make Jet a machine that was capable of using this wall in an appropriate way. One key way was, you can see part of the neutral beams here, the upgrade to greater than 30 megawatts, ideally, of neutral beam to take it that was necessary for a metal wall to be useful, led by Tim Jones, Elizabeth Surrey, Dragoslav, and a number of other people. A huge upgrade to the beam system. And then all of the diagnostics, control, and ways of operating that we had to adapt, particularly with the use of cameras, imaging, etc., a lot more, the protection of ETA-like wall as the whole umbrella net. And like I said, that was all done in an incredibly prompt time. And you can see here that the lovely Joy, this is the first plasma with the ETA-like wall. Some faces who are here today, of course. And it was very shocking how easy this was. We made the first plasma in not very times that I think, you know, there's some surprised faces there for how straightforward that went. And so this was a big difference in how we kept JET relevant and made sure it was going to be useful for the future. In this period, we had another change of the organization, not quite as significant as last time. We moved to being under Eurofusion. Many old people, old faces returning as part of this Eurofusion. We were still under the leadership of Francesco Romanelli and also Lorne Horton, who was taking over responsible for operations. And Lorne was really very key in making sure we kept our eye on the horizon of what we wanted to do with this metal wall, taking it all the way towards DT. So we had an initial focus, the large team here involved and many others. We had, here's a picture of us in the control room. We had to do the commissioning of the systems, getting the machine going, various things. And you know, through 2010, we had this focus using the metal wall and getting us towards DT2 and how we could demonstrate what this was useful. So this was experiments, performance-driven, a huge number of experiments, basically how to redo everything we did before, but with a new wall. This was when my involvement in JET changed a bit. I started to become a session leader, got involved in the hybrid, similar to the Optimized Shear program. I have great thanks to the people who brought me into that program and got me involved. Clive Chalice one, but many others who were involved in that program have really demonstrated one of the other key things on JET, I think, which is where newer people are really brought into the team and given quite a lot of responsibility to really push things forward. And I think this is another strength of JET, that we're happy to bring people in and their energy and experience and excitement. So this was our drive to try and get to this performance, and it was certainly another period where it was not smooth. Here's one picture of some mess we made. This whole period was, of the 2010s, had a number of downs that we had to overcome. This is one. This was a neutral beam water leak. We had a few. I was there for one of them where I dumped 1.4 tons in the machine. But there were other problems. There were the fact that we couldn't achieve the performance we wanted with the metal wall, which required a lot of work to improve. We had the issues with EDS, where we had a problem with the tritium handling facility and had to completely rebuild the whole system. And this is another one where the key part of JET was where, in all of this, we didn't, all right, we might have cried a bit, but we didn't just give up. We didn't try and blame people. Just like Michel said, we tried to look for how we could fix it. We'd bring in the people that may help from other teams. We put a huge focus on, and we did completely, the team completely rebuilt the tritium plant in a huge way. We recovered from this many times and kept going. So the JET spirit to overcome this is really a key thing that makes us special. And that the machine that we inherited as people like myself was robust and versatile enough to cope with these and mitigate the problems. So we did keep together and we did focus, and then we skip ahead a little bit to DT2. This is from the first day of DT2. The next issue we had, of course, was COVID. We looked tired already here. We couldn't get a nice photo, so this is the best we got because of the COVID restrictions. We'd already done about 6 months of pure tritium, which was very exhausting, and this was the first day of DT, people in various states of tiredness. And this, of course, was incredibly successful. So all of you will be aware of the press release and the event that we held there, which was a global event. It went around the world. I remember my mother-in-law calling Kirsty the next day saying it's on the news in Australia. She was surprised. She didn't realize JET was actually a big deal. She thought it was just something I was obsessed with. But it turns out it was a big deal. So DT was an incredible success. We do indeed talk about the record. Fernanda said this was taken back by Optimized Shear, but she was the session leader for this, so it wasn't completely taken away from her as the record. But the DT campaign and all of this was not just about the record. It's a nice graph, it's an easy thing you can show and tell you about it. But the physics out of this, the whole, and you can look at this whole special issue of nuclear fusion and all the papers in there and the many to come that tell you on this, on the isotope physics across the different campaigns leading up to this, the alpha heating, the wall retention, and many of the rest of you's favorite topic that I won't be able to mention here, that really was the output of this. But JET wasn't finished. We had a little bit of overtime available to us and a little extra campaign coming along. So we did some more work recovering the power a little bit, changing a tritiated pinny, which is no small feat, and some of the team there doing that. We had a new structure again, integrating us even more within the European Fusion Program, within the WPT program, so a change in how we run JET. Again, not as dramatic as some of the others, but it did make a difference to us. And we went through this period looking at new scenarios, new bits of physics on JET that we hadn't done so much in the previous years. X-point radiators, radiative scenarios, tungsten screening, small elms, SPI, a 60-second pulse again. And we were really taking advantage of the versatility of JET even to this bit. And it was very nice that we had this visit from Paul-Henri Rebut here, shown around after the results of DT2. We told him about that. He's smiling here. He said they were good, but we should have done better, of course. But well, we always want to do better. That's part of the aim of us working at JET. We had a few more things. We took the same photo again, but this time we could take it higher up. We have a drone now, not just people hanging out of a window. We had some cake. We had 40-year celebration, which was a very nice little party. And again, JET didn't stand still. One of the key things of us on JET is how can you keep a machine running for 40 years? You don't stand still. We kept putting things in. Even with a year left, we installed a lid QMS system for measuring fuel retention. We carried out many of this is a nice picture, and we want some nice pictures. The shattered pellet program had a large part of the time in the year. And of course, we also did another DT campaign, no small thing. This time we could have pictures in the control room. You can see us here, again, tired, happy. This was the last, at the end of the last shift of DT3. Some of us have been up 16 hours, so that's why I look like that. And, you know, this was a big thing. We broke the record again, as we're now allowed to say in the news, as it's been in the news, which was, again, this just is a highlight, but it hides the whole chunk of enormous physics. This wasn't even what we were trying to do in DT3, but it was still, you know, it makes a nice graph when you do this. So, you know, real kudos to Mikhail Maslov and the team for pushing this record and achieving it yet again. Where do we go from there? Well, I'm going to show my team. One of the key things about JET is that we're a big team and we all like to work together to make this stuff happen. This is my team. JET as a whole is my team, then my neutral beam team, us looking cheerful. And you've all got your own teams as well that you've all worked with and worked with each other. And, you know, to me, this is the bit that really makes JET is some of us smiling, some of us looking grumpy, but all being happy together. And we were, of course, very happy we'd achieved a greater than 30 megawatts, finally hitting that design goal of the beams many times that year. We then come on to kind of the very end of JET. So this was the last day we did, we had a bit of fun really on the last day. We made some outrageous runaway experiments to really test things you might not do if you wanted to use the machine the next week, with some incredibly impressive damage on the tile from the runaways. And we did negative triangularity, which Peter Lomas really pulled all together in one whole day, developed a whole new scenario. And we resurrected a key other JET tradition is that we had some champagne, which is not usually allowed, but that was nice. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough given how many people turned up for the last day. So we had a last day, and this was the kind of things I just talked about, but being JET, we're always greedy, and we had a second last day. So we had a hard limit. We couldn't really do anything after that morning, and the lid QMS team, this wall retention experiment, used every last minute, really. And this is another thing that we've really been very keen on. We want to squeeze every last drop out of JET at every minute that we did this. And this was indeed the real end, and they left us with a little marker that we can remember going on there. So where does that leave us at the end of JET? Of course, other people will say about that. Where's the leave it? I think, you know, myself, I'll certainly miss, sounds strange, I'll miss the people I've worked with and the teams that we've done, my team and the wider team, of course. I'll miss the stress, to be honest. I'll miss the 16-hour days. That was always, because they were always fun and exciting, and I think I need to take up some kind of extreme sports to fill that gap now. So, this leaves me in a situation where I think we should all be incredibly, some of us will feel sad that this is at this stage, but we should also be incredibly proud of what all of us in this room have contributed to this incredible machine and the output that we've all seen here. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. I love how he nonchalantly goes, oh yeah, we broke another world record, like it's so easy. Right, next up, Peter Lomas. He is a legend here for 40 years. He also, actually, 2 people have emailed me to say he's the best boss in the world. So, group leader for plasma operations, Essex boy. Peter.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm afraid I'm going to start all over again. Right back to first plasma. What's noticeable here, the arrow has gone missing. The AVO, which was the first measurement of jet plasma. And in the first days, there were very few measurements, and those measurements kept improving year by year for the full 40 years, and we were still doing new measurements right on the last days. I have to say, I was quite impressed when I joined JET about touch panels. I'd never seen one before. I thought that was really impressive technology. But actually, the control of the tokamak itself was a little bit basic. We had to write the waveforms for the 2 big generators ourselves, and once the shift tech loaded the wrong waveform into the wrong generator, and the net result of this was to overcurrent the toroidal field coils. The shift tech was absolutely petrified when he realized he'd done this, but Paul-Henri's response was, I always thought the toroidal field would go to a higher field, and in fact this paved the way for the 4 Tesla upgrade. Over this decade, we did improve the control under the guidance of Peter Knoll, with what was initially a student, Massimo Gariba. They added feedback to position, plasma current, and finally they even did some digital control. Quite importantly, Paul McCollum laid the foundations for the overall control of the tokamak, every bit of the tokamak essentially. And this is what we now know as level 1, and recent session leaders use this a lot. I was one of the session leaders with Chris Schuler, who led us, Paul Thomas, Arturo Tanga, Helmut Niedermeyer. And we did 7 megamps, limiter plasmas, 4 megamp H modes, AC operation, pellet enhanced plasmas, and finally at the end of this phase we did the PTE1. One of the important things we did is we didn't just focus running the machine on a small number of people. We brought in everybody from across the project, and in this early phase we started to train Fernanda Rimini, for example, to be a session leader, and Chris Lowry. Then we made a really major upgrade. We changed virtually everything. Not only did we replace another toroidal field coil and the internal coils that made the derivative operation, we had completely new computers. These are Sun workstations. We did digital real-time magnetics. This is under Jeff Fishpool, Shakib Ali Arshad, and Alex Goodyear. We also built a completely new control system because the 4 diverter coils plus the other coils were too complicated to operate as we'd done before. And Peter Knoll, Massimo Guiba, David Campbell, Stefano Pupin, and Filippo Sartori all made this work. In fact, the basic program that they designed then we're still working on the last day. Having done that, we changed it again to become the Mark II diverter. Sorry, I missed a step. We ended up that first phase before we did the Mark II diverter with a beryllium diverter, which you can see there. And on that beryllium diverter, myself and Roberto Sartori did 6 megamp H modes on this beryllium target. Then we changed it, and we changed it to the Mark II diverter. Sorry, too soon. And this was done by essentially Martin Karlaker, the new director, George Vlassis, Chris Lowry, and others. And what they wanted to do is to change the direction of jet in towards optimizing the diverter for a reactor. And what they did there, they actually paved the way for the rest of the lifetime in jet because they made it possible. They built a platform on which you could build changes to the diverter until you get it really right. And with this new diverter, we did the first DT, and this is the slide I do want to show. This is one of the physics results from the first DT experiment, and this is the critical demonstration that you can heat a plasma with the alpha particles. And this shows the temperature rise as a function of the alpha heating power, and this was done by Paul Thomas. The joint undertaking wound up with a gas box diverter, a new diverter. It wasn't the last diverter. And sadly, the end of the joint undertaking meant the end of the motivational champagne parties. We then changed to operation first under EFTA and later to Eurofusion. It was a major change in the structure, as I said before, led by Jerome Pamela, who made it work, and then he handed over to Francesco Romanelli and finally Lorne Horton. And what was important about this is that the visiting scientists, essentially from all over Europe, took the lead in all of the experiments. However, many of us thought that this was a temporary expedient, didn't think it was going to survive. Some people suspected that some of our other partners didn't want us to survive, but in fact we did, and we did so because of the effort of the people who wanted to make it so. In this phase, we're still on carbon here. We got back to the 4.5 megamps, which was the limit of what we could do with the gas box diverter. But we learned in this phase in the early 2000s not only how to collaborate in doing experiments, but how to collaborate in doing upgrades. And we started from small upgrades to bigger upgrades. And our confidence in that essentially led to the Easterlight wall. As Damien has already said, a major change. Virtually everything inside the vessel was changed to metal. But because this was a collaboration, genuine collaboration between many of the associations, that gave everybody a sense of ownership, and it also gave us a fresh start to operation. As Damien said, we got first plasma, first attempt, and I was as gobsmacked as anybody at that. But it took us a long time to learn how to deal with tungsten. And this shows, this is a flare of tungsten dust coming off the diverter. And stopping those from contaminating the plasma was actually very difficult indeed. In fact, this was probably the most complex phase compared with the preceding operation. But had we not got the experience from that preceding operation, we probably would have never made it work. We did 2 more DT campaigns. First, as we said, was under COVID. Notice how few people in the control room, and they were supposed to be keeping 2 meters apart. We beat the bet that Golston made. That's what the plaque is. Golston bet we wouldn't do more than 10 megawatts for more than a second. It took us 20 years to get around to doing it, but we finally did, and then we beat that record again in the second DT. The second DT was almost routine. It had been so difficult doing it under COVID that doing it without that restriction made it very easy, as if tritium was just any other gas. We were still doing things on the last day. We did negative triangularity. We developed a completely new regime from scratch in no time at all. What made JET great? Well, actually, the first thing to say is the people. This is actually only half a team because it's the late shift. But JET was very good at anticipating what was going to be needed and what would keep JET in the forefront and keep it interesting and to the point. And we were good at doing this both on a short timescale for this set of experiments we're going to be doing the next months, but also for the longer timescale to have major upgrades which will keep us going for the next 5-10 years or so. We couldn't have done that if it wasn't for the fact that the basic tokamak itself was solidly engineered, for which Paul-Henri and others really give our heartfelt thanks to. I have to say, I could not believe that it would last for 40 years and see almost the entirety of my career. Thank you.
Right, we are on to the final speaker. Let's invite our Chief Executive Officer, Professor Sir Ian Chapman, to provide some final words to the stage. Ian.
Thank you very much. It's a real delight, a real pleasure and an honour to be here with so many of you today. Before I forget to do this at the end, I wanted to do two big thank yous. So firstly, thank you to all of you for being here. I know a lot of you have travelled from all over Europe, indeed from all over the world. So we really appreciate the time and the effort that you've put into coming to celebrate with us. So thank you very much to all of you. And then maybe a round of applause thank you to the people that have helped organise today. A lot of effort has gone into it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, but thank you to the dozens of people that have been behind the scenes organising the day for you. So if we can give them a clap. Look, I think there's no doubt that JET is the most important fusion experiment there has ever been. And it has left an indelible mark on history. Without JET, the fusion field would not be where it is today. ITER would not have been agreed. ITER would not be happening. We would not have the confidence to move forward to power plants. But JET is just metal. It's metal and concrete, right? It's the people that have made JET what it is. It's the people that I think is the true legacy of JET. So today is all about celebrating the people, celebrating you lot. Thank you so much for everything you've done, for all the late shifts, all the 16-hour days, the early starts, the midnight call-outs, the weekends, the holidays cancelled. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has cancelled a holiday at some point because of the JET timeline. So thank you for your dedication, your commitment, your ingenuity the whole way through that. Fusion is, for sure, right, one of the big team endeavors. You know, you can only do it with a big team. And actually that team now, over 40 years, must be in the tens of thousands, not hundreds, not thousands, but into the tens of thousands. But I would like to say a word for the leadership of JET. I know full well it's a pretty lonely, pressurized place, right, sat in that seat, when you're representing hundreds of people. But every single one of the leaders of JET over the many decades have led with integrity and have led with commitment. And we owe them a great debt. So thank you to Paul-Henri Rebut, to Hans-Otto Wuster, to Martin Keilacher, Jean Jacquinot, to Jerome Pamela, who I know wanted to be with us today but wasn't able to travel, to Francesco Romanelli, to Tony Donnet, who then later delegated on to Lorne Horton, and finally Fernanda Rimini. So thank you all to them. Big round of applause for them. I don't often say nice thing about politicians, but I'm about to. Thank you also to all the officials and the ministers in both the European Commission and the UK government, indeed all the European governments, over 4 decades for continuous support and funding. Right? We shouldn't take it for granted when there's so many pressures on public money, but they have given us unwavering support for decades. And only through that support have we been able to do what you've seen today. Been able to plan long term, be able to reach milestones, upgrade the machine, go through all of those many, many changes. You know, go back to the 70s, there was huge enthusiasm. The oil price was through the roof, but it's not been that way the whole way through 40 years, right? There hasn't been continued enthusiasm for fusion the whole way through, but we have had consistent support from our funders. And only because of that have we been able to tackle the technical challenges. It's sort of perseverance on behalf of all parties. So thank you to them. I really am delighted that we went out with a great set of results, as you've seen, towards the end of operations. Setting world records is a fitting ending, I think, but that's not what I remember. I won't remember the world records. I guess, for me, the legacy of JET is 2 things. Firstly, I think it is a team, and a team spirit that has overcome so many obstacles. Look, fusion is hard. It's really, really hard. And 40 years have thrown up so many challenges, and every single time, as you've already heard, right, there was never find a culprit, it was always find a solution. Ingenuity and brilliance of the people in this room have found solutions. I feel, extremely privileged every day to work with a team that can do that. You don't ever underestimate the brilliance of your colleagues. They come up with solutions to some problems that people can't even fathom, and yet they can come up with solutions to it. I think that team ethos comes through most vividly when we're under most pressure. In the last 10 years, things like the problems that we had with the active gas handling system, and literally working every hour around the clock to get that fixed. Ditto problems, and Damien even showed a picture of the problems with the water leak in the neutral beams, and the neutral beam team coming to us and saying, can we work night shifts to help you? Rather than us saying to them, you have to. It was find solutions. And it's only because of that huge dedication and ingenuity that we have achieved what we have. So you've gone so many times, so consistently above and beyond, essentially running your whole lives around the JET timeline. I've said it before, but I've never found, certainly in a professional setting, a camaraderie like that. You could be running a late shift on a Friday night, and you knew full well there were 100 people back at home checking the jotter, checking the session summaries, supporting you, willing you on. And if there was ever a problem, you'd have hundreds of phone calls into the control room saying, how can we help? Do you need us to come in? And that teamwork goes way beyond the technical issues too. So much of it unwritten, sort of unsaid. It's helping people integrate into a new country, to settle in socially. Always somebody to pick you up when things went wrong and things were tough. And it's those moments, I guess, I'll remember. Not the world records, not the shots where the machine, or even, God forbid, the plasma did what you wanted it to do, but the people behind those records. And those people now have ended, some of them, I don't know why, but some of them did choose to leave and go and work on other machines. And now pretty much every machine in the world has had somebody from JET working on it. So in a sense, JET has taught a whole cadre of people and then a whole cadre of other machines how to operate. You get an education really like nowhere else from running JET. I've done experiments myself on 6 different machines, and there really is nothing like JET to teach you about what it really means to do fusion. The second thing that I take away from JET was the ambition, a huge ambition to achieve first of a kinds, to break new grounds, uncover new physics. The jump from PLT to JET was just enormous. Such a huge leap into the unknown. A massive high-risk gamble that, frankly, was just relying on the ingenuity of people. We had no guarantee it was going to work. It was just a huge gamble. And back then, you know, the geopolitics, the price of oil made that a gamble that governments were prepared to take. But it was a gamble, right? It was a big risk, and we had to deliver in the face of that risk, and we have. I take from that, you know, we need to channel that ambition, that urgency. You know, we all came to this field to find sources of low carbon energy that we need, right? And as a community, including the minister and all the officials, we need to be brave and we need to take risks. Just like that back in the 70s. It was a huge risk. So if you take anything from today, I implore you to look around the room and you will see brilliant minds. You'll see dedicated people who can achieve amazing things together. If you can combine that with the same ambition, the same bravery that was at the heart of decisions taken right at the start of JET, and you know, as we celebrate as a team and look back and look at the amazing things we've achieved, also think about the bold steps that we need in the future. Right now, if you look around, you know, the world, you can feel opportunity in fusion. You can feel a real pull, for the first time in a long time, a real pull for fusion. That's a rare opportunity to make something really transformative happen. And then again, look around the room and you see talented, brilliant minds. Trust in the innovation of your colleagues and be brave. Take some big, bold steps. We all came to this field, I think, to make a difference to the world. Right? There's an altruism running in all of you. We all came to deliver fusion power, and I think the world needs us to do that more now than ever before. I will leave you with a quotation from C.S. Lewis, brilliant author, who is buried actually not far from here. There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. Thank you.
Right, thank you again. That concludes our speeches, so thank you again for coming. If you would like to join the JET Old Boys and Girls group, Fred Hurd is, yep, he's up over there. Please contact him. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank my entire comms team for the hard work they put in making today happen, especially from design to audiovisual photography, and especially Kate Conway, our events manager. Big hand. Thank you. Please use today, relive old memories, create new memories. Life is short. You are all star makers. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Right, red group, you're up for your tours, and the rest, lunch.